Here I am. I'm at the west end of Dexter Reservoir. And the dam is right over there. Dexter is always kept full. And in fact, there's a marina in that area. There's a park. And then that is the town of Lowell. We can barely see the concrete abutment of the lookout point. And then you'll see there's an earthen dam that's kind of covered in vegetation there. And then the valley going up there is the valley that Highway 58 follows going east. You can see the covered bridge, which is on the southern end of the bridge going across from 58 over to Lowell. Then I'm going to scan around, and you can see the hillsides here to the south side of this reservoir. They are in various stages of clear cut. Some have just been done, like the one, kind of the V-shaped one that's right there. There's a light brown area there that's just recently done. The ones that are light brown, like the one right to the south of that light brown area, and the one over here that's kind of on the front end of that triangular hill, those were done several years ago, so the grasses have grown up. And then you can see that the trees are various stages of taking back over. Because remember, we have a law here in Oregon that whoever cuts the timber has to replant within 5 years. But of course, what they replant is Doug fir. One big tree farm. So Dexter Reservoir has had problems in the last 4 or 5 years or more, in the summertime especially, with having the water tainted by blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria that are photosynthesizing protists that live in the water. They release toxins. And in fact, that park over there was a real problem because people would go to that park with their pets, their dogs, and their dogs would go out and swim in the water, and then they would sicken, and more than a few of them died. The Army Corps of Engineers they're supposed to be the ones in charge of testing the water in these reservoirs, but just lately they have not had the money to do that. I mean, they were monitoring them quite frequently and posting if they were finding, the findings of what all was in the water besides H2O. And then just a couple years ago, they announced that they were not going to be able to do that anymore. They would monitor, but they would not be posting to the public, which didn't make any sense, but that's the way of it. Now, with many reservoirs like this, where there's this Highway 58 has been in place for quite some time, whereas the dams, most of them were built in the 1950s and after. And this is probably one of those cases where Lowell used to be down in the bottom of the valley next to the river in its old channel. In fact, if you go into Lowell, and a lot of those houses up on the hillside are new, but if you go into Lowell and then you drive out towards this park where the marina is, you'll see the cemetery is actually not that far up off the edge of the reservoir. Now, if this was a natural lake, the pioneers that came in here that started building structures to live in would never have positioned their cemetery that close to a water source. So the fact that it's up where it is probably the original cemetery. And I got to admit, I haven't gone in there and taken a look at the dates on the tombstones, but it's probably the original cemetery that used to be up the hill from where the town used to be when it was down next to the river in the bottom of what's now in the bottom of this reservoir. And there probably are still structures left over from that old town underneath all that water down there. Now, the next reservoir up, which is the Lookout Point Reservoir, it will go up and down in level of water depending on what's going on. How much water are they letting out of the dam in the summertime, especially towards the end of the summer. Especially during this last couple of years of drought years, the amount of water in that reservoir has been actually pretty low. But they keep Dexter Reservoir pretty consistently the level that it is. Okay, so the lookout point's the one that goes up and down depending on what's going on with the weather and all like that, whereas Dexter, they keep at the same level.